Hello, sixth graders. Mr. Hyler here. Just want to take a minute and I'm going to introduce Dr. Hicks to you. I told you in my announcement yesterday that Dr. Hicks is going to be joining us this week to do some lessons with us. And we're going to be looking at something that kind of compares to what we've been doing with Article of the Week when we were looking at things with cell phones. If you remember way back then when we were looking at cell phones, and those are two articles. And I'm going to give a chance for Dr. Hicks to introduce himself, and then we're going to kind of just talk back and forth about what you're going to do this week.
All right. Thanks, Mr. Hyler, and hello, everyone. So yeah, I'm really grateful to have the opportunity to work with Mr. Hyler and share these ideas with you. And I know they're going to replace some of the things you normally do each week, which just as you're getting settled into remote learning, that can feel a little uncomfortable, but hopefully you'll find it kind of interesting. And if we'd been in the classroom together and been able to do a little bit more, you'd get to really dig in and explore these websites in more detail. So I hope you do take the opportunity to explore them. But in the videos that we'll release later this week, I'll kind of walk you through this whole activity that I've called Argument in the Real World. And you'll get a copy of this Google Doc, and there are kind of two parts to it, something that you'll do early in the week and then something that you'll do later in the week.
Yeah, so what Dr. Hicks has done for you is he has broken this up into two parts for you. And so what I'm thinking, because Mr. Hyler has shipped out to you with your lessons so far, is that I've kind of broken it up into Mondays and Wednesdays. So I'm thinking that for part one, you could have as a timeline to help you in an organization and managing your time, is that you could have part one done by Wednesday. And this will require you to do a couple of different things. And I'll let Dr. Hicks go into some more detail about that. Not that I'm, putting it all into his shoulders, but I'll let him explain that a little bit more. I will let you know that there are a couple articles that you will be reading and that you will be doing some writing, and you get to play around with a word cloud too. And that's kind of taking place of what we're going to be doing with our grammar lesson this week and our journal writing as well.
Yeah, and so I just scrolled through those really quickly. It looks like a lot. I think it will probably only take you about half an hour, maybe 45 minutes total, if you look at it. So the first thing is that you're going to be reading two different articles, but I'd like you to think about, what your current thoughts are about reopening the country and where we're kind of going with that. So you can write that in here. And then you'll have the two articles to read, and you can write a little bit more after you skim through those articles and read them. Then we're going to look at those articles just like we might see them showing up on our social media channels. And you get to answer a few questions and think about what you notice about these headlines and these images. And then you get to look at these two articles, just the text of the articles, and kind of think of them like word clouds. And if you want, I give a little more instruction in the videos later this week. You can click in and play with those word clouds a little bit too, if you would like. And then later in the week, you'll move into the second part, which even though it looks a little bit shorter, actually is going to require you to do a little bit more thinking. I think you're going to go in, you're going to try to find the different kinds of evidence. Mr. Hyler told me you'd already thought a lot about finding evidence in other people's arguments before. So you're going to try to find some evidence, and then you're going to be trying to explain why that evidence is important, how you might use that evidence. And you can write a little bit here, and then you can even compare those and contrast them down here if you want to write a little bit more. And then finally, and I explained this in the second video, you'll go through and you'll be writing a paragraph of your own where you are starting to kind of make your own argument about when the country should reopen and why. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. And sixth graders, if you remember, and Dr. Hicks mentioned it about the different types of arguments. If you remember, we talked about extending pieces of evidence. We talked about authorizing pieces of evidence. We talked about statistical evidence in terms of looking at those types of things with numbers or graphs or charts. So looking for those types of evidence in those pieces. So Dr. Hicks, I have a quick question for you. That document that you just had pulled up, is that something that you want the students to make a copy of so that they can do their own writing right in that document? Or how would you like them to kind of go forward with that writing, especially with that shorter piece of that shorter paragraph with part one and also the longer piece at the end of part two?
Oh, I appreciate you asking for two reasons. Number one, I don't quite know how Google Classroom works because I'm not a Google Classroom user at Central Michigan. We use a different system called Blackboard. So I think you can push that out to them and they can all have their own copy. And then second, what would be great is if we might have a couple volunteers who write that paragraph that would be willing to share their Google Doc with me again, because I'm writing a chapter in a book about this lesson and trying to get some real examples from students. And we'd have to get permission from the student and their parents or caregivers, but we could worry about that later. If you have 2 or 3 of your 6th grade students who are willing to share, I would really appreciate it.
Awesome. So a couple of things, 6th graders, that I heard Dr. Hicks say was that I will be able to push this out to you and give you a copy of it through Google Classroom, which I can, and that's not a problem. I actually did that with 7th graders this past week, so it's really easy on my end to be able to do that. And then the second part is that he's going to need some volunteers as tribute to be able to go forth and look at your pieces and possibly even get your pieces published in a book. So maybe that's you and you want to have your piece published in a book. So think about that. And as we've talked about being published writers in the classroom. Is there anything else, Dr. Hicks, that you would like the 6th graders to know?
I'd just like you to know, the second video is a little bit longer than the first video because what I do at the very end of that video for probably the last 3 or 4 minutes is share some additional resources. If you really like the one resource that I share, all sides, and you want to find some other free resources to think about different argument topics, I share a few of those. So those are kind of like a little bonus feature at the end of that second video. But again, I would guess that a 6th grader would probably spend about 30, maybe 45 minutes at most on part 1. And again, about 30, 45 minutes at most on part 2 if they're really taking their time to do some thoughtful writing and really taking their ideas and making them full and complete.
All right. And so if you need me to put that into 6th grade terms for you, that is what he's saying is you have plenty to do this week without me assigning a grammar flip lesson or a journal writing. And you need to do some thoughtful writing, which means take your time, and you're going to have plenty to do this week. So don't spend too much time outside, even though it's going to be really nice.
Yes. Well, thank you very much again for letting me be a guest teacher this week. And I hope that you find this activity interesting and that you begin some conversations with your family and friends and others about what your beliefs are about when the country should reopen after the COVID crisis, because certainly it's a topic that's on everybody's mind right now.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Hicks, and good luck, 6th graders. And please let me know if you have any questions or concerns through Google Classroom or through email.